solar energy as a transportation fuel by Dr. D. Jayakrishna, Sir, Associate Professor, Department of Mechanical Engineering, NIT, Warangal. Now our student is going to give the brief introduction about the Sir Jayakrishna, Sir. Brief introduction. Okay, ma, Rahul, please.
Good morning to everyone. I am very glad to introduce our resource person, Dr. D. Jayakrishna sir, Associate Professor, Department of Mechanical Engineering, National Institute of Warangal, National Institute of Technology, Warangal. A warm welcome to you, sir.
Thank you.
In today's session, sir will deliver a lecture on solar energy as a transportation fuel. Sir has received 4 research projects. Among them, 3 are completed and 1 is going on. Sir has 1 patent on a novel biaxial solar tracker using 1 motor. Sir published 43 international journals and presented Sir's project papers 32 international and 8 national in conferences. Sir published 2 books and chapters authored. Sir guided 6 PhD students. Among them, 3 were completed and 3 were ongoing. And Sir research interest is computational fluids dynamics and heat transfer and thermal engineering, thermal energy storage. Sir is a reviewer for applied thermal engineering in Elsewhere Journal on solar energy in engineering, ASME, and heat transfer in Springer's and thermal science and engineering process in Elsewhere. Thank you very much, sir, for your acceptancy to deliver a lecturer, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Narendra. Thank you, sir.
Sir, speaker on.
Can I share my screen, sir?
Yes, sir. Please, sir.
I think I can switch off my cam so that this bandwidth issue can be overcome.
Okay, okay, sir.
I hope everyone is able to see my slides, sir.
Yes, sir. It is visible, sir.
Okay.
Please, sir. Continue, sir.
Okay, sir. I'll be starting my session. Before I start, I would like to welcome you all to this 1-week online faculty development program on renewable energy for industrial and domestic applications. And I would like to sincerely thank the professor who has invited me and JNTU College of Engineering, Purivendala, for giving me this opportunity. And as just you have heard about me, I'm Dr. Jayakrishna, working as an associate professor in the Department of Mechanical Engineering. So today's topic of my presentation is solar energy as a transportation fuel. Before going to this actual topic, I'll be giving like some intro about the importance of going through this particular topic. Why there is a need for us to do a lot of research on this area, or even to understand various other aspects. I would like to go through my presentation in this particular way. First, I'll be just discussing about various issues related to global warming and its consequences, and I'll be briefly explaining you about various renewable energy sources, that too where like India is blessed with. And then I'll be taking you to like why this solar energy is required among various other fuels. By using this solar energy, we can have come out with different fuels. Out of that, why hydrogen is so important. And in the production or in the process of producing hydrogen, there is one process called methane cracking process. Why it is so prominent, or in what way it is advantageous for us. I'll be even giving those details also. And after that, after going through or understanding the basic process of solar methane cracking, And I will just give you an outline of what are the various technologies and that are available around the world, and what are the various difficulties or like disadvantages that each technology have. And I'll just even from conceptual level, because I did some CFD analysis in coming out with some solution, and we coined that reactor as aero-shielded reactor. This is the name which we have given. And after that, I did a lot of parametric study. I'll be sharing some of the details with you. And finally, I'll be closing my presentation with concluding remarks. This is how I'll be going through my presentation. Okay, this most of you might be knowing, but just for the sake of continuity, I'll be giving these details. If you observe, sun emits the radiation ranging from low wavelength to a higher wavelength. So the radiation that is reaching or hits, which is hitting the Earth's atmosphere, in that 30% because of the clouds and atmosphere, it reflects back to the space, and 70% reaches the Earth's surface. If you just see, if let us take any body and we try to keep this body under the sun. So after some time, what happens is you will feel this particular object to be hot. So what does it mean? That the solar energy is absorbed by the particular body and it starts re-emitting the body. It is the physical nature of any body. So now what is happening? Whatever radiation that is hitting the Earth's surface, the solar energy is absorbed. Okay, but this radiation will be a wide range. It ranges from 0 to infinity, and it does have low wavelength and higher wavelength radiation. So once the body or Earth's surface starts absorbing, it starts re-emitting. Usually the re-emission will be in terms of infrared region. Usually the wavelength is more. So whatever gases that are present in our atmosphere, these gases acts as an opaque medium. That means it will not allow this higher wavelength radiation to escape out to the space. So because of that, what is going to happen is the average temperature of the Earth increases. So we can see that ice at 0 degrees centigrade and water at 0 degrees centigrade, there is a phase change that is taking place. Even there is no significant or there is no rise of temperature at all. But still what happens is whatever ice we have, it is totally converting to water just by at constant temperature. So even a couple of degree rise in temperature is actually very, very important for us, because it totally changes the cycle, the natural cycle that is happening for our Earth. So now what is going to happen is, as we can see, for example, if you are going in hot sun, let us take in peak summer, and you are going in a car, and during this what is happening is we just kept this car under the sun and keeping all the doors closed. So now what is happening is you feel very much suffocated, you feel very, very hot. Why? Because this glass acts as opaque medium. It will not allow the higher wavelength radiation to go out. Because of this, the temperature increases. The same thing is happening to our Earth. These greenhouse gases, what are the various greenhouse gases? It can be water vapor, nitrous oxide, carbon dioxide, methane. Like this, we do have several greenhouse gases. These greenhouse gases will not allow this longer wavelength radiation to escape out into the space. Just what we were experiencing by sitting inside the car, by keeping our doors closed, windows closed, glass doors. So in the same manner, the average temperature of the Earth is increasing. So once the average temperature is increasing, the ice near the poles is getting melted, and even recently, last week itself, we heard that there was a huge iceberg which is near to that of New York City or so, got broken and it started melting. So obviously mass is always conserved, right? So because of this, what happens is the water level rises. So now the question comes, there is always some ambiguity or always a debate. Some group do mention that it is the tendency of the earth itself. That means for a certain cycle, the earth itself automatically by nature itself it gets heated up and it gets cooled. There is nothing to do with greenhouse gas emissions. Like that, there is a lot of contradiction that is going on. And but what happens is, and one more question. So whatever we are dumping, our Earth's atmosphere is so huge. So whatever greenhouse gases that we are dumping, so is it actually going to significantly influence? Are these gases not present before itself? Before we started dumping all these greenhouse gas emissions into the atmosphere? These questions will come to us. So what happens is actually these gases, greenhouse gases are already available in our atmosphere. But these greenhouse gases contribute something like 1% to our atmosphere. So actually our earth is perfectly balanced. So usually what happens is if this 1% greenhouse gases were not available, then our earth's temperature will be something like 30 degrees centigrade lower than what we are having now. That means it will be too cold to live. So what is going to happen? This earth or nature is perfectly balanced in such a way that it made the earth in such a way it is like it was very suitable for us to live comfortably. So but what is happening is as this thickness of these greenhouse gases are increasing, this is becoming much and much opaque, and this infrared radiation is not able to go back to the space, because of which the temperature is increasing. Because once the cycle changes and as we are disturbing the nature, we are having all these consequences, these floods. In winter, we will have a huge drop in temperature. In summer, the temperature rises to a very high level. Obviously, this last month we did see in US, in Canada also, the temperature got shot up to a very large value, which they did not experience earlier. Now, this is one point. So, already these gases are available, but as we started dumping more amount and more amount of greenhouse gases into the atmosphere, the average temperature is increasing. This is one point that we should know. Another thing is, if you see greenhouse gases, as I told just now, there are several greenhouse gases, but why we always speak about carbon dioxide, greenhouse gas means we say about carbon dioxide. Why? Because out of the various gases that are available, various other greenhouse gases that are available, carbon dioxide contribute to 60% of other greenhouse gas emissions. That is why we concentrate mostly on carbon dioxide. So if we are able to reduce the carbon dioxide to a significant level, that means we will be in a position to reduce this greenhouse gas emissions in general and overcome the problem of global warming. So these are some of the things that it is necessary for us to know before we proceed further. As I told earlier, there was a lot of debate saying that it is the nature of the earth itself where it gets heated up for a particular duration. The earth's average temperature increases and automatically it comes down. There is nothing to do with greenhouse gas emissions or like CO2 emissions in general. So there was a study which is done by taking samples from the poles. Why poles? Because that is in the earth, that region is the most undisturbed portion. So certain gases get trapped in the layers of the ice. So scientists collected samples of the air that got trapped in between the ice. They have tried to measure the carbon dioxide percentage. So what it was observed is from 1880, there was a gradual increase of CO2 percentage. And they tried to correlate with the average temperature of the earth. So what they observed is wherever there is an increase in CO2 emissions, ppm level of CO2 emissions is increased, there they could observe a trend of increasing average temperature of the earth. This is one proof which is required or which can mention that as CO2 emissions are increasing, the average temperature of the earth is also increasing. So this is one proof. So that is why we can say that as the CO2 emissions are increasing, the average temperature of the earth is also increasing. So, and what it was observed is they had tried to see like what in which locations there is an average increase in temperature. What you can observe here is near the poles there is an evidence that the average temperature started increasing, and because of which, as the temperature near the poles also started increasing, the ice near the poles started melting, and this water, there is a rise in sea level. And this is one thing, like it shows that, what is the rise in sea level around the globe. You can observe here, there is a legend at the bottom. See, the red indicates there is an increase of 7 centimeters of sea level. So wherever you are seeing this red portion, so which shows that, I hope like everyone is able to see the animation also. So it shows that there is a significant increase in the rise of the level of sea in that particular portion. So what it was observed is global sea level rose about 17 centimeters, which is nearly 6.7 inches in the last century itself. So if you compare with the earlier days, the rate in the last decade, however, is nearly double than the last century. So just you can imagine like how fast the sea level is rising. This is one more important thing that we have to look at. So what is the problem? Like why if there is a rise in sea level? And recently also you might have seen one article which mentions that several cities will be submerged in water within the coming 10 to 15 years. This is the report which is given. So, and one more thing, what happened is there are certain islands, for example, like Maldives. So, what happens is within the coming 10 years or so, if their rise is this much rapid, we will not see in our map itself. So, this will be totally submerged in water. So, our land portion also started continuously diminishing. Obviously, there are so many consequences that we will face. And one more important aspect is, so when the average temperature is increasing, you can observe if rain comes, means for example in Kerala or Mumbai, it is going to be a huge downpour. Downpour in the sense, if rain comes, it is coming as a flood. If in certain portions, it is becoming much and much drier. So next point is, what is the problem if the average temperature of the earth is increasing? So when the temperature is increasing, the atmosphere will be much more warm. So when the atmosphere is warm, the air has much more tendency or more affinity to take the more amount of water. That means water gets evaporated at a faster rate. So wherever you have dry and warmer temperature, the lakes and rivers, whatever we have, it gets dried at a faster rate. As all this water will be accumulated in the clouds itself, so suddenly wherever you have rain, what happens is it is going to be an outburst. In the sense, it is going to be a huge downpour of rain. So that is why you can observe these days, wherever the rain is there, it is coming like a downpour. That means this many centimeters, everything is getting flooded also. All these things are like the consequences of like global warming. And one more important thing which I forgot to mention, there was a study. So if you just observe the virus or the diseases now these days the mankind is facing, one reason what they have correlated is because of the melting of ice near the poles. Why? Because there was a study which mentioned that there is a lot of virus or like certain bacterial forms which were stored in the ice which was there near the poles. So as the ice started melting, these viruses are also coming outside. That is why these days, if you just observe, the number of virus are like, I'm just not saying about COVID alone. There are other things also which are coming out, and new cases or new forms of virus were actually observed. And this was also correlated to our global warming issue. Why? Because of all these consequences, the balance of the nature is getting disturbed, and we are seeing all these consequences. So now the alternate solution for it is we have to go for like cleaner source of energy. That is nothing but renewable energy source. First, like especially from Indian context, I will show like what are the various renewable energy sources which are much more promising to us. So from Indian context, like installed power capacity is around 34.6 gigawatts at the end of 2019, which contributes something like 9.6% of the total installed power capacity. And you can see the right side of this slide, there are red portions on a particular locations where we are blessed with lot of solar energy. Okay, this is one point. So, and again, if you see the wind energy point of view, installed capacity is around 37,669 megawatts. And we do have a generation capability of around 64,485 gigawatt hours, which is around 10.1% of the total installed power capacity. And we are blessed with a lot of costly resource, that means costly area, where you can observe here the red portions, like where the red color is there. It shows that we have a very good wind potential. Okay, the legend at the bottom shows that what is the wind speeds that we have. And obviously we are even blessed with a lot of hydro energy also. Installed capacity scale is around 46,000 megawatts, which contributes something like 12.3% of the total utility power generation capacity as of March 2020. Additional smaller hydroelectric power units are also there with a capacity around 4,683 megawatts, which contributes to be around 1.3% of the total utility of power generation capacity, which is already installed. But if you just observe, there are certain problems here. So especially in hydropower generation means wherever you have like this source, there only you need to place this power plants. It can be hydropower plant, it can be even wind power plant also. And one more important resource, energy source that India is totally dependent on is like biomass energy. So approximately 32% of the total primary energy used is derived from biomass. So more than 70% of the country's population depends upon this biomass itself. So India has around like 5 plus, like you do have more also, but I could not get the exact data. A gigawatt capacity biomass power plants. So 83% are grid connected, while the remaining 17% are off-grid plants. But it is observed, you can see here, obviously this biomass is also considered as like one of the renewable energy source. Why? Because whatever biomass we are using, it is considered that the same amount is being generated also. That means, but logically speaking, the way in which deforestation is done, that means that the way or the rate at which we started consuming this biomass is much more high when compared to afforestation. That means how we plant, it does take some time. So obviously one more important thing is all the renewable sources of energy does have advantages and disadvantages. And it is one more important thing is not totally reliable. Out of all the renewable sources energy, now I am going to discuss about solar energy. Why? Because solar energy does have certain advantages, and obviously you do have other side of the coin also. It does have other disadvantages. Now the issue is, whatever disadvantages we have, how we can overcome them, in what way we can have certain solutions. I'm going to even show that. If you just see, the annual solar energy reaching the earth is around 1.5 to 10 power 18 kilowatt hours. While the annual, but this is an old one, is around 1.5 and 10 power 14 kilowatt hours, which if you compare this data, it is around 0.1% of the incoming solar energy. it will be sufficient to cover world's energy demand. And obviously, as I told, whatever radiation that is coming from the sun, 30% is getting reflected back to the outer space because of the atmosphere, clouds and other things. So if you take that particular aspect, it is around 1 kilowatt per meter square of solar radiation will be reaching the Earth's surface under ideal conditions. So if you just observe this map where the solar radiation data is given, certain portions, we do have good amount of solar radiation, and certain portions we hardly have any, especially near the poles or like certain locations, we do not have the solar radiation. Now the question comes, how we can tap the solar energy? What are the various methods? Because it is not uniform throughout, and certain portions, like especially if you see this particular region, you do have good amount of solar energy, but other portions it is in very diluted form, obviously, and the required amount of solar radiation is not there. How we can overcome this? So from Indian context also, we are obviously like blessed with a lot of solar radiation, and if you can have some energy source where you can convert the solar energy into some transportation fuel. So what happens is wherever the solar energy is abundantly available, you tap this solar energy and convert into transportation fuel and supply this energy, like just like what we are having like petrol and diesel. You transport this particular energy to where the solar energy is not available. So in that way we can actually balance or we can meet our requirements. That is one thing that we need to seriously look at. So as we are discussing about several advantages of solar energy, obviously the solar energy does come with certain disadvantages also. What are these things? The power density of solar radiation reaching the Earth's surface is low. So directly, I'm not saying in terms of other than without having any device or some method of tapping this, we cannot directly get energy. That means we cannot produce power. The instant solar irradiation underlies temporal variations. It is totally
Sir, audio is not working. Sir. Hello, Jai Krishna, sir. Dear participants, please wait. Sir is going to rejoin. Just a few minutes, please.
Hello.
Hello. Sir.
Hello, sir. I could not realize that the connection was lost.
Yeah, okay, sir, please.
So when did it lost, sir? I was not knowing that.
Last 5 minutes back, it is gone, sir.
Oh my God, 5 minutes. Okay, okay. Sir, one small request.
Yes,
in
sir.
case if it is lost or something, just give me a ring, sir.
Yes, okay, sir, fine, sir.
Because I was not knowing that the connection was lost. I was telling my own and I was going forward.
Yeah, 3 advantages you that given slide, that's answer.
Oh, that was the thing. Okay,
Yeah.
okay. 1 second, sir. Because one hold on.
Okay.
Hello, sir. Is it
Sir.
fine, sir? Yeah.
So not right now, not as visual, sir. PPTs are not going to share. Sir.
Okay, okay. There's a problem. Okay.
Yeah, now it is visible, sir.
Actually, I could not notice, and I was on my way.
And
Okay.
the three disadvantages.
Here only, no, sir.
Yeah, from here onwards, sir. Okay, sir.
Sir, as I requested, like in case if the connection is lost, please give me a ring, sir, because I am not in a position to know.
Definitely, sir. Thank you, sir.
So yeah, actually there were three disadvantages. One is that solar radiation reaching the Earth's surface itself is low, and you do have like a temporal variation because it is totally uncertain and unequally distributed throughout the Earth's surface. So now the question is, how can we overcome these things? So as the power density is low, you need to make use of some concentrating devices such that you can attain higher temperatures. And another thing is because it is totally uncertain. We are not sure like when this energy will be available. So we need to have like a conversion or like storage devices. And one more important thing is like as the radiation is not equally distributed, certain portions it is blessed with solar radiation and certain portions it is in very like it is not available at all. So what you need to do is you need to convert the solar energy into some transportation fuel. Okay, just like hydrogen and so on, and supply to the places where there is a huge requirement. So if you just see, like if you consider a total annual solar radiation of 1700 kilowatt hour meter square and a collector efficiency of 5%, okay, like we need something like 1100 by 1100 kilometer square. Like this is the area that we need. So if you take the overall earth altogether, like including sea as well as land, we need something like around 2.4% alone. And if you take only land alone, it takes something like around 8.1% to meet our requirement. So why this I'm specifically telling is, these days we can see, even especially in Middle East, they are constructing solar islands. Solar islands means they have a small artificially made island where they placed a lot of solar thermal as well as PV system, PV panels, and they are generating power over there, and through cables it is being transferred to the city. So in that way, actually, they are able to save the space in the city itself. So now the question comes, how do I utilize this solar energy? Usually, if I say something about solar energy, what things that comes to our mind is solar PV alone. So what happens in a PV cell? Like it make use of the photon energy that we are having through solar radiation. And what happens is by using certain conversion devices, inverter, what we do is we convert to either like AC or DC and store in terms of like a battery, or we can directly connect to the grid and supply the power. Now, actually, what is happening is one good advantage of solar PV panel is that the life of the panel is around 20 years. So like everyone started saying like it is a very good option because it does not have any maintenance. Only thing that you need to do is you need to just clean the surface regularly so that your performance or the efficiency of the system is better. Now the problem is these 20 years like started getting over, and some of the panels need to be disposed. So disposal of these photovoltaic panels has become one of the major issue. So even you cannot just like that dispose. Why? Because it is highly toxic in nature. So so now comes like, so people started even thinking, can we tap solar energy by other means where it is the relatively the maintenance is more. That is solar thermal system. So you tap the solar energy and convert into heat energy. And with this heat energy, you convert to steam, run the turbine, and get power out of it. So this is one thing, like slowly the importance is picking up, and obviously it does not have other issues, especially once you just like solar photovoltaic panel, once you completely utilize, there is no point about dumping. It is just like our regular thermal power plants where we burn coal, but here we make use of solar energy. Okay, so usually the solar thermal collectors, it can be broadly classified into two ways. One is like non-concentrating, another thing is concentrating collectors. So in non-concentrating, and one of the important things that we need to know here is concentration ratio of suns, SU1, number of suns you can say. So it is defined as the ratio of the aperture area to that of receiver absorber area. More the suns or more the concentration ratio, more the temperatures can be attained. So if you have higher concentration ratio, something like 2000 or so, we can even melt metals. There are even solar furnaces also that are available, which you can melt metals. So you can attain something like nearly 2000 or nearly more than 2000 degrees C also. So the point is like how in the way in which you are able to increase the concentration ratio with proper geometric design, you can really attain very high temperatures. If you just take our solar water heating system, which has a flat plate collector itself, you can attain an average temperature of 30 to 80 degrees centigrade. Okay, but the if you just this most of you might be knowing, but I'll make it very fast. So you do have runner tubes and riser tubes, and here you can observe here. So solar radiation hits this particular location where water is placed, and water gets heated up, and because of the buoyancy, less denser fluid will be going up, and you do have like a storage tank where the hot water is stored. So, but the temperature range that you can have here is around 30 to 80 degrees only. So generally we can use for washing, cooking, and bathing purpose. So generally, and even if your requirement of temperature is less than 100 degrees C, like this is a very good option. And there is one more option, like evacuated tube collectors. If you in this evacuated tube collector, in flat plate collector, if you are able to reduce or overcome the losses, convection losses, the performance can be improved. So based upon that concept, these evacuated tube collectors have come. So we can have something like around 50 to 200 degrees C also, depending upon the materials. We can attain this much temperature with this evacuated tube collector. Here also the concentration ratio or number of suns is yearly one. So where we can have is we can have like a steam generation, solar air conditioning. So we do have solar absorption systems where we can have air conditioning effect. And another thing is like linear Fresnel lens. It is like a single axis tracking. These are like flat mirrors, which we call like as a Fresnel reflectors. So here at this particular point, this receiver is placed. So what happens is these mirrors, depending upon the position of the sun, there will be a orientation such that always, right from the morning to that of evening, this mirror will track the sun and hits this particular surface. So the concentration of the solar radiation here will be more. So you can attain with this particular method, you can attain the temperatures of around like 60 to 250 degrees centigrade, where it is very much suitable for power generation. So what happens is here, obviously it is not this straightforward. This is only for our understanding sake I have given. So here you do have a receiver where solar radiation gets concentrated here. So this converts to superheated steam. This superheated steam, just like our regular thermal power plant, is fed to the turbine. This turbine actually rotates as the steam expands, which is connected to the generator. We will have power. This rest of the part is one and the same. Only thing is that we will make use of solar energy to convert steam. This is one Fresnel lens. So another thing is like line focusing collector or parabolic trough. Depending upon the concentration ratio, you can even attain like 300 degrees centigrade. It is used for power generation. So in the same manner, solar radiation falls on this particular curved surface, parabolic shape. So this focuses and concentrates at the focal point, and what happens is it increases the temperature. So whether you want, like, depending upon the quality of the steam we want, we can have either series or parallel connection depending upon what mass flow rate we want and what temperatures we need to attain or quality. This will be arranged as per series or parallel connection. This is another way where you can attain something like 300 degrees centigrade. So another thing is, like, if you go for higher concentration ratios, it is a parabolic dish reflector. This is nothing but a Stirling engine based upon one side maintaining hot, another side maintaining cold. We can get the power out of it. Okay, like usually the focal point will be placed in such a way, the hot side is exposed here. This is one portion. This is the hot side. So this is, at this particular place, Stirling engine can be placed. Especially with this parabolic dish reflectors, what happens is you can attain temperatures of nearly 500 degrees centigrade. In general, it is used for power generation. And certain portions, if the concentration ratio is low, we can even use for cooking purpose also. Now you do have like advanced cooking systems also, where they make use of phase change materials and different heat transfer fluids, where to directly these things are coming into picture, like even hybrid systems also, where they make use of solar PV as well as solar thermal systems coupled together, and solar cookers are being designed. In earlier days, we were having either dish type receiver or like box type receivers. It is not that efficient actually, and the cooking time is also very high over there. This is a heliostat field collector. This helio, each mirror, what you are seeing here, these are actually called helios. Helio means sun. Stat means stationary, which means that it is a stationary sun. So just in earlier days, we were used to, when we are traveling in a bus, if you want to irritate your friend, what we can do is when sun rays hit this wrist of the watch, we actually orient this particular watch such that always we make at one particular point. The same concept can be applied here. So here what happens is we do have several mirrors. These mirrors will be so huge, it will be in terms of several meters also, meter square area. So these mirrors will track the sun in such a way, always the radiation will be concentrated here. So you can attain very high concentration ratios here. Is it fine? Is it fine, sir?
Sir, okay, sir. Fine, sir. Please continue, sir.
Okay. So here we can have a temperatures of around like 2000 degrees C also, where especially this is used for power generation. So that is one way. Like one of the disadvantage we did see, like one method is that you concentrate the solar radiation and improve its quality. That means attain higher temperatures. That is one. Another thing is like conversion and storage of solar energy. So one thing is that you tap the solar radiation and store it as a thermal energy and store it in some insulation tank. That is one way. And on the left side, you can see here, you are converting solar energy into electrical energy by means of a photovoltaic panel. So here what you are doing during the daytime, when you have solar radiation, you tap the solar energy and convert it to electrical energy by using inverter. You store in terms of battery. Whenever you don't have energy, you utilize the energy from the battery and make use of some required purpose. This is one way. And there is one more thing called solar thermochemical energy storage. So here what happens is, because of the dissociation of the molecules, for example, ammonia is there. When you expose it to the solar energy at a particular temperature, it splits to hydrogen and nitrogen. So once you want to retrieve so whenever you have like energy, more solar radiation is available, you send this heat energy to this and dissociate it. And now once you are in need of thermal energy, what you do is you again send the cold fluid to it such that it rejects back the heat. So there is something called the charging cycle and there is something called discharging. And here also there is a lot of importance, especially this phase change materials are being used now for thermal energy storage. So here what they are using is, instead of sensible heat storage materials, they are using phase change materials such that overall system is compact. But if you observe here, here conversion and storage are fine, but these are not that much convenient for transportation. It is not an efficient way, especially batteries is one thing, but still lot of improvement is required from the battery point of view. Why? Because if there is a increase in the charge power density is one important thing. That means the amount of power that you can get per unit volume. So usually lithium-ion batteries are coming into picture, but it does have other disadvantages also. Like when the temperature is increasing or the charging time, there are several issues that is required. But the problem with batteries is that if you cannot keep for a longer duration, it gets discharged. There is one issue. And especially if you store the thermal energy, you need to have a huge insulation tank and you can carry this thermal energy, which is also not an efficient way. So what we need to do is we need to convert into some fuel, just like what we had like petrol, diesel or so. And we can store in tanks and supply and utilize it. Just one of the very good example will be a hydrogen. Why? Because it has very high calorific value. So the requirement that we need to have is you make use of solar energy by using any other technique, like it can be parabolic dish, it can be heliostat based system, or it can be any of these. Use this heat energy, and there is one other method called the reforming process. Actually, steam reforming is one method where we produce hydrogen from methane. This is one method. So you use this heat energy from solar energy that we get from solar energy and expose. This is one particular method where methane and steam are sent to one reactor, and after that what happens is you get hydrogen. This hydrogen can be a transportation fuel. This hydrogen can be used in fuel cell, and you can transport in terms of like this hydrogen can be stored in terms of like cylinders. But one of the major important things is safety aspects of transporting hydrogen is still a major problem because it is highly explosive, and what happens is it should be effectively stored. Okay, so what is going to happen is like you can make use of the hydrogen. Hello. You can make use of the hydrogen and utilize this for fuel cell and get electricity out of it. This is one way by which we can.
दो प्रोग्राम के आ जाते हाँ वही है नहीं यार ये कुछ नहीं है
Hello.
Sir, continue, change, sir.
Yeah, because there is a lot of disturbance.
Yeah, someone is.
Okay, so here one important thing is if you can have hydrogen and get hydrogen by using solar energy, this will solve our requirement. Okay, so this is one important thing that is very much required in near future. Even Ambani has given a statement, right? He want to come out with a very efficient method by which he can have green hydrogen. Right? That means by using some energy resource like solar energy, we want to have hydrogen, which is considered to be a promising future fuel. So now you do have so many other fuels. Now the question comes, why only hydrogen? Why not something else? Why don't you convert to some other fuels also? Like that kind of question will come to us. So if you just see our history, we started utilizing wood, where the hydrogen to carbon ratio is around 0.1, it was less. So the energy density that we were using olden days, like when we started using wood, is less. And later we went to coal, where hydrogen to carbon ratio is nearly 1. Then we went for hydrogen oil. Now, in future, in coming 2025 onwards, it is going to be a hydrogen economy. Why? Because the energy density that we have, because hydrogen to carbon ratio, if you just observe, so the calorific value or the energy density that we have is much more high. So in future, it is going to be like hydrogen economy itself. And obviously, this fuel cell is also coming into picture, where you simply have these hydrogen storage tanks, and you connect to the fuel cell, and your byproduct will be like water only. So it is not giving any CO2 emissions also. So if you can have this hydrogen which is being produced by using this solar energy, there is no problem of CO2 emissions. We are able to overcome that particular aspect also. So if you just observe, like the CO2 emissions are also increasing day by day. Unless otherwise we go for some fuel like hydrogen, it is going to be much more difficult for us. So, and one more thing is that what we just observed is it is much more high when compared to 31%, because I did not get like reliable source. So if you observe, have increased around like 31%. Now it is much more high. So now the question comes, there are so many methods by which you can have hydrogen. Okay. Out of all these methods, there is one method called solar methane cracking. Why it is so like advantageous? In what way it is good for us? Let us have a look into it. Basically, there are three pathways of producing chemical fuels from solar energy. What are those? One is like solar thermolysis. That means you make use of thermal energy and get hydrogen out of it. And another thing is solar thermochemical cycles. And this is one thing. And another thing is solar reforming process. So there is solar reforming again, solar cracking again, solar gasification is there. For most of the cases, there is a CO2 emission there. Okay, obviously, even if you have CO2 emissions by sequestration, you can have this. But is there any possibility, or is there any other method by which there is no CO2 emissions at all in the cycle? Okay, that is what we actually need to look into. Solar electrochemical path, here what is going to happen is solar can be used to generate electricity by using photovoltaic cells, or like you can have solar thermal systems and use this energy that is generated for electrolytic process, so that you can get hydrogen out of it. And solar photochemical path, direct use of photon energy. And another thing is solar thermochemical path, where solar energy, whatever heat that is being tapped, used for thermochemical process. Okay, so if you just observe in this particular cycle, directly or indirectly, there is some CO2 emissions also. Now the question comes, is there any possibility of overcoming this CO2 emissions? One such process is solar methane cracking. So usually we generate or we get hydrogen by steam reforming process. This is the process generally we do have industries also. We send methane into a specially designed reactor in the presence of water, steam. And what happens is this natural gas and is exposed to this particular reactor, and we will get syngas. This is CO and hydrogen. And what happens is this we feed this the same thing by exposing to water in the form of steam, and you will get hydrogen and carbon dioxide. But if you observe here in this particular process, there is CO2 here, and obviously we are getting hydrogen, and we are burning lot of coal or some other fuel where you do have lot of CO2 emissions also that are coming out. So in this particular cycle, can we see like where the CO2 emissions can be ruled out? So especially whatever steam that we are getting is by burning some fossil fuels, and in the same way at the end we are getting CO2 also. So now what happens is, can we, instead of burning some fossil fuel, can we use solar energy and use this heat energy instead of directly burning some fossil fuel? There also what happens is particular amount of CO2 emissions are reduced for sure. But in this particular cycle, you do have CO2 also as one of the gas that are coming out along with the production of hydrogen. So now people started thinking, Is there any solution for this? Can we overcome this particular problem? So now the solution is solar methane cracking process. So what happens in solar methane cracking is you have a solar reactor where you expose this solar radiation and send methane into it. So once you expose to methane nearly at 1200 Kelvin, the decomposition starts, because of which what happens is it leads to hydrogen and carbon. So you do have hydrogen and you have, instead of carbon dioxide, you will have carbon. This carbon is also a very good revenue, especially for making tires, laying roads, our cartridges. There is a lot of application even for carbon. And this carbon that we are getting will be in nanoparticle form. So there is a huge requirement. It is like in one shot, two birds kind of thing. In this particular cycle, we are getting hydrogen, which is considered to be a promising future fuel. And one more thing is that there is no CO2 emission, and whatever carbon that we are getting, it also generates a lot of revenue. It is being used for several applications. So that is why out of all the various processes that are available, we can shortlist solar methane cracking process. Okay, now we have come to a conclusion that solar methane cracking is a very good option where we do not have any CO2 emissions at all. Now the question comes then, what is the problem? Why we are not making use of this methane cracking process and get this hydrogen or carbon? So these questions will come to us, because the problem is not that straightforward. It has several disadvantages and difficulties. What are those? So if you see the reaction rates, so when you expose methane, consider that you have exposed methane, and nearly the decomposition from of methane into carbon and hydrogen starts nearly at this particular point, nearly at 800 degrees C or so, and you can have complete around like 1200 degree Kelvin. Okay, so now what happens is, if you observe, methane is getting decomposed and it is coming back in terms of carbon as well as hydrogen. Okay, so but this carbon will be in solid form and this hydrogen is in gaseous form. So now the point is like, how do we make? Can we just like that expose this methane to solar energy and get hydrogen and carbon? So where do we do that? So the process can be done in some system which we can call that thing as a reactor or some device, where this chemical process is very much required to be happen. So the heart of any chemical process is actually called the reactor. The reactor has to be reliable both in terms of mechanical point of view and heat transfer and chemical process point of view, because there is a chemical reaction that is taking place. When methane is exposed to very high temperatures, it splits to carbon as well as hydrogen. Okay. Now the question is, what is the major problem? So here you are saying that the methane is splitting to carbon as well as hydrogen. Then why we are not able to have this particular device? The main problem is, when this reaction is taking place, the carbon, it is actually agglomerating or it is sticking and it is bursting the reactor. So what is that? And it is even damaging the mirrors or like the glasses and the walls of the reactor, and it is totally damaging the reactor. These are some of the disadvantages. Let us see. So if you can see here one animation. Yeah, you can see here, this is nothing but the heart of the process, which we call the thing as a reactor. So you can place this reactor at the focal point of either parabolic dish, or you can have a heliostat system. You can have a heliostat system where you focus the solar radiation such that it concentrates at this particular point. This is only a small example to mention how you can concentrate the solar radiation and feed to the reactor. So how that reaction happens? So I will show you one small, I think there is an issue, video here. So this is nothing but methane cracking process. So here, this is a reactor. So this portion is actually exposed to solar radiation. Okay, I'm going to explain this in the later stage. So initially, I'll be feeding methane. This is my methane here. So methane is fed. So if you observe here, this methane is forming a vortex. The main reason or requirement for this is it increases the residence time. What do you mean by residence time here is, so methane can spend more time in the reactor itself. And so that it forms a vortex. Here if you see it forms a vortex, that means it is rotating and it is going out like this. Usually, if it is not exposed to any sunlight or solar radiation, usually it will come in and it will go out like this. Okay, there is no problem at all. But what we want is, we want the methane, it should be exposed to solar radiation. And this, when you expose, this is a solar radiation, when it is exposed, and once you are feeding methane, this methane, what we call cracking of methane, this is the methane molecule CH4. When the solar radiation hits this particular methane molecule, this splits to carbon, which is in solid form, and hydrogen. So now what is happening is, when the solar radiation is there, you can observe here, this methane is splitting to carbon, which is in solid form, and hydrogen is there. So, but this carbon that is formed is started getting sticked or getting agglomerated near the exit. So as you continue the process, what happens is, this totally chokes the exit, and slight increase in pressure will lead to failure of the reactor, because you have hydrogen over there and you have methane also over there. Once the pressure is slightly increased, what is going to happen is, it leads to the bursting or of this particular damaging of this particular reactor. So now the question is, this particular method is very, very promising. Then are there any people who are working around the world? Yes, there are several research groups who are working on this particular area. So let us see one by one what is their technique, what method they are following. So this is a ETH Zurich, that means Switzerland's reactor. This is solar simulator. Okay, solar simulator means actually certain days they have sun and certain days it is very cloudy. So what they do is, it is not like whenever you have sunlight, then only you can do experiment also, or you do have limitation in doing the experiment. So this is a solar simulator, which actually, this is a reactor, this time, like whatever I am showing here, this is a reactor. So this solar simulator actually mimics the sun. So depending upon what radiation we need, actually certain number of lamps will be added, which will be switched on, and it focuses at this particular focal point. So you can see this is a ETH Zurich reactor, where the solar radiation is exposed here. And now you can observe here that there is one coil which is placed. And this whatever I am highlighting here, this is nothing but a glass surface. So now what is happening? So the solar radiation is exposed to this, and methane here it can be fed from outside, at the rear portion. It should be fed in such a way it forms a vortex and it goes out. So when the methane is coming in, just like I showed you an animation earlier, so this methane is exposed to the solar radiation, this splits to carbon and hydrogen. So while going exit, ideally what should happen is, the carbon particles should go and this hydrogen also should go. So this hydrogen and carbon should be separated out, and this hydrogen should be stored in terms of a cylinder. Okay, this is one particular reactor that ETH Zurich had made. Actually, there are several papers also on this. You can see here, because when the solar radiation is exposed, you can observe here this particular portion will totally melt. That is why there are cooling channels, just to prevent or to overcome or to resist the high temperature that is being exposed. Otherwise, it will melt the system. So when the solar simulator or these lamps are on, you can see here all these radiation is focusing at this particular point. You can see something like this. when all the lamps are on, and we will be placing this reactor at this particular point. And this is the experimental setup they were having. This is one heliostat. This is a 120 meter square heliostat. And what does it do is, this will track the sun. So wherever, depending upon the position of the sun, this heliostat will track the sun and orient in such a way, solar radiation that is hitting this particular mirror will again reflect back here. You can observe here, there are slides here. There are blind, just like we have some window blinds, right? There are blinds here. So whenever the experimental setup is not working, they will close this. And whenever they are actually doing the experiment, they will open these blinds. So solar radiation hits this particular, comes here, hits here, and again it reflects back at this particular point. So there is a mirror here, right? You can observe here. So at the focal point of this parabolic shaped mirror, this reactor is placed. So this reactor is directed towards this particular inside, such that the radiation that is hitting this particular heliostat again reflects back here and concentrates at the focal point where you are placing your this reactor. So this is the portion that I have shown you, right? So like there is a glass window. Through this glass window, radiation will go inside. And whatever reactor I have shown here, this particular reactor, so is placed at this particular location. Like that, what happened is they did several trial runs. This is one thing. But what happened is, irrespective of what conditions they were having, it could run for only 30 minutes or so. Because this, whatever carbon that is formed, which is one of the very good advantage that we have with this particular process, started agglomerating or sticking on the walls of the mirror, on the walls of the glass window, as well as on the walls of the reactor, and it started choking the exit of this particular reactor. So obviously it started failing. There is one more reactor which is given by Weizmann Institute of Science, Israel. Actually, he is a very famous scientist, Professor Kogan. He is no more now. He did a lot of studies on this because of this very good advantage or the method that we have, where we do not have any CO2 emissions. This is the reactor that he designed. So here what happens is, this is a glass window, and he did have like auxiliary stream, and he is feeding some methane gas here. What he has observed is, depending upon the flow conditions, because this particular portion is like a window. So when methane is fed here like this, when this methane is coming in contact with this window, because it is a glass window, this methane is directly getting split to carbon and hydrogen. And these carbon particles starts like sticking on the glass window. And what is happening is, as it starts sticking to the glass window, when you are sending a lot of solar radiation into it, this, because it is forming a hot spot, and this window is melting. Actually, this problem they have faced actually. So in order to overcome this problem, what they did is, to cool or to sweep this particular glass window, they used some auxiliary stream. That means either like an argon or like some inert gas or like hydrogen gas. They started cleaning, sweeping some gas here. So by doing so, what happened is, they are able to cool the window. There is a glass window, as well as they could avoid the carbon particles sticking here, because methane, when it is exposed to sunlight, it splits to carbon and hydrogen, as this carbon will be in solid form. So what they have observed is, the flow conditions, that means with what flow rate you are sending, it is this kind of reactor is totally influenced by this particular flow condition. You can see here the flow is totally disturbed, and here you can observe some kind of vortex is formed, and whatever it is there, you can observe here there is a vortex. That is, these are like flow visualization studies. He captured with high shutter speed camera, where how by injecting some gas through the mainstream, they could actually see how the flow is taking place. But the problem is, like for this kind of design also, it was not running continuously. It did have some problem. Another reactor which is made by Aerosol, it is like a National Renewable Energy Lab, it is USA. They coined or they named that particular reactor as Aerosol Solar Reactor. So you can observe here, this is a reactor where the solar radiation gets concentrated here. This what happens is this particular portion, secondary reflector or secondary concentrator, will converge the solar radiation and you can attain high temperature here at this particular portion. In this particular portion only, they kept this particular reactor. So how this reactor works is, they had a particle feeding. What is the particle they're feeding is, actually this is the main stream. So methane is fed like this in this particular direction. So along with this methane, they injected some particles also. So what is the advantage they have is, so when you inject a particle also, when solar radiation hits this, let us take this is a carbon particle. When solar radiation is hitting this particular particle, it actually stores some heat. This also becomes red hot. So when this methane gas is in contact with this particular particle, then what happens is, it was observed that the reaction rates are much more high. More decomposition of methane is taking place. So because that is why what they try to do is, they along with the mainstream, when the solar radiation is exposed, they injected carbon particles because they don't want to send any other particles. Why? Because suppression becomes a very big problem. So like this carbon itself, they tried to inject here, and they observed that the reaction rate was high. So now coming back to this, what you can see here is, so this is a hydrogen sweep, and you can observe here, this is nothing but some porous tube. So main particles are fed, particle with the natural gas is fed in this particular direction. So now what happened is, they made some porous kind of a tube. Why it is required is, when the main particle and carbon particles are fed, because of the inertia, what happens is these particles may go here and there outside. So when this is exposed or this methane is coming in contact with this high temperature zone, what happens is it starts agglomerating over there, and it is totally in between itself, they are blocking, because it starts agglomerating within no time and it is totally blocking the way. Because of which what happens is, it totally got stuck and the reactor started exploding. So to overcome this particular problem, what they did is, they had an idea of having a porous kind of arrangement. They were sweeping with hydrogen gas, because anyway hydrogen is also one of the products they have along with hydrogen, and if the reaction is not complete, methane will not totally decompose. You do have hydrogen, carbon and methane. So they sweep with the hydrogen with particular pressures were also varied, such that this hydrogen will go through this porous kind of arrangement, such that this methane gas will not come and stick to this particular thing, and their reactions are better. But what it was observed is, at this particular portion, by doing so, at this particular portion it was fine. But it totally chopped at the reactor exit and it got exploded. So this problem they have faced for Aerosol solar reactor. And this is one more reactor which is by CNRS France. Their reactor is very, very simple. So they had two plates. Usually there is a nozzle kind of arrangement will be there. This is of converging portion also. So what they had is, this is the window, glass window, which is made of CaF2. So, and the solar radiation is exposed to this glass window. Okay, and there is an inlet. They are feeding with hydrogen, methane as well as argon. Argon, why? Because it is highly inert and it does not react. So this argon will act to cool this particular glass window, and obviously it will make sure it will flush these carbon particles which are formed over this particular surface, and it will make sure that it passes through this particular passage. So what is happening here is, they do have this graphite plates, where when the solar radiation is coming, is exposed to this particular graphite plate, its temperature increases. So, and when you are actually feeding methane, And as it is getting exposed, obviously they do feed carbon particles also to increase the, like, which acts as a nucleation site for the reaction rate to take place. So then, but here also what they observed is they even tried to vary the gap between two channels, and the converging portion. Several studies were tried, but for still this one also, as it started sticking at one particular point, it started agglomerating, and it actually choked the exit and it bursted out. That means it got like it was blown off. Why? Because you do have hydrogen, you do have methane, which is highly explosive, and a slight increase in pressure lead to a disaster. So this was also working for some time. So then what we had at Texas A&M is like we need to make use of the information that is already available. Can we design a reactor such that it is not, our flow conditions should be in such a way that it does not stick to the walls of the reactor. That was the motto, and we have to mimic the flow conditions in such a way, like by taking experience from Israel. So can we sweep the window also with some gas? That was the thing. So based upon that, we did lot of CFD studies and we tried to see can we do it or not, because the CFD studies we cannot each and every time we cannot fabricate experiment. It is a very costly affair and time consuming. So we tried to do CFD studies on that. So we coined that thing as aero shielded reactor, a laminar aero shield sweeping carbon particles from the wall. So what is that I am going to tell you. Vortex flow inside, extending the resistance time and keeping the carbon particles in the middle. So this was the reactor. So here solar radiation will be made to focus. So concentrated solar radiation, this is a glass window, it is made to fall here. And here you are seeing F2. F2 is nothing but your sweeping gas. So just to cool or to safeguard the glass window, we tried to sweep a small jet of gas we made to flow, such that it cools the glass window, as well as it will not allow the carbon particles to come and stick here. That is why. And you can see here in this particular, you can see here in this particular location, there is a lot of inlets. See, this inlets, the angle of each inlet is also very, very important. We have selected by doing several trailer studies in such a way such that like it forms this F1 is nothing but a methane flow, such that it forms a vortex inside and it does not stick to the wall. And you observe here one more stream of gas is made to flow along the walls. Like means there is a jet. We try to inject this jet on the walls. So if you observe, there are three kind of flows. Okay, one is on the walls, on the window, and this is nothing but main flow. Main flow, what we do is we try to inject methane through it, and to improve the reaction rate, we try to add carbon particles such that these carbon particles acts as a nucleation site. So the numerical methodology that we followed is we did try a different turbulence models. What we have found is RNG K-star turbulence model was found to be reasonably good because the Reynolds number here is like relatively less here and it forms a vortex dominant flow. And for radiation, we used a discrete ordinate radiation model. And because methane is one species, hydrogen is something different, and you do have other inert gases also like argon. So obviously species is what we need to take. There are different gases. So species transport equations were solved. And what happens is in this reaction is also important. Why? Because when methane is exposed to solar radiation, methane splits to carbon and hydrogen. So we did use some Arrhenius rate constants and we have modeled it. So as to inject the particle, because carbon particle is also injected, we used a discrete phase model because these carbon particles also need to be injected. And obviously we did solve by simple algorithm, semi-implicit pressure linked equation solver by Fournet-Wanning method. And the convective formulation we did use second order coupling schemes. This is nothing but your convective continuity equation. And 3D we have solved. That is why you do have XYZ momentum equation. It is given in a tensor notation. And RNG K-epsilon model we have used. That is why turbulence modeling is done by RNG K-epsilon model. So this is K and the epsilon equation. And if you just observe here, we did consider buoyancy effects also. Why? Because as the fluid is getting heated up and you do have different densities. For example, if you are using argon, hydrogen, methane, the densities are also different. So buoyancy effect also may be much more significant. So we did consider in our modeling the buoyancy effect also. And this is an energy equation, and this is a species transport equation. And these are the regular effective viscosity, effective pressure, all the things like turbulent viscosity. And we use the concept default constant values in our modeling part. An important thing is we did consider the gravity effects, because when the particle is moving, inertial effects are also important. And this is nothing but we did consider calculate the particle Reynolds number. And based upon the particle Reynolds number, the velocity at which the flow is taking place over the particle, the drag effects also are important. So there is a thermal transport between the particle as well as the fluid around it, right? So that also is considered. So now this drag coefficient is evaluated based upon this correlation. This is also taken from the literature itself. And we did energy balance. We did consider both convection as well as radiation among the particle, and it does have like storage term also for the particle. So because CFD, we do need to have so in CFD we do need to have we have to validate. So what we did is we were having the earlier experimental results of Kogan. So there is something called DPM, discrete phase model, where we can actually predict the temperature, how the concentration, how the particles are getting stuck near the window. We tried to simulate it, and based upon we could qualitatively compare the experimental results of Kogan with our CFD work. This is one validation that we had. And another thing is ETH Zurich reactor. So we tried to work on already whatever I am sure, all the papers are published. This got published in Journal of Energy, Hydrogen Energy, and this also got published in Journal of Hydrogen Energy. So this is a reactor, this is a secondary concentrator. Solar radiation hits here and it gets concentrated here. So methane carbon particles are fed from the back, and it forms a vortex and it goes out like this. Because you do have hydrogen, unlike undecomposed methane will be there along with carbon particles. These things will become an exit. We tried to compare with the results of ETH Zurich reactor, and we were reasonably successful. And what we have observed is by giving different flow conditions and forming a groove, that means some path, if you are able to channelize the flow, the residence time was observed to be good. So by taking this thing into confidence, what we thought is, why don't we apply the same method, or by understanding certain things from various other works, why don't we apply the same techniques and design some new reactor by taking observations from the other reactors. So we have come out with our own reactor, that is aeroshielded solar cyclone reactor. As I told, you do have one flow here to sweep the wall, and this F2, whatever you are seeing here, this is to sweep the glass window, and here you are seeing some index, right? This is a tangential index for the main flow. That means I'll use methane as well as carbon particles. This hybrid mesh I generated, and we used nearly 10 million cells. Why? Because you have to make sure the gradients are properly captured at this particular location. And we have to make sure that you optimize the grid also, such that the gradients are properly captured and physics also is properly taken. So just to understand whether our concept of this aero-shielded reactor is working well or not, we try to do residence time distribution. That means, for example, you have a reactor, you inject some gas and try to get the concentration at the exit. That means you try to see how much time that gas is trying to be present inside the reactor. So what we did is we tried to mimic the experimental condition by using CFD. So as I am doing like species transfer also, I injected some methane and observed that how much time does it take to collect at the exit. So that kind of studies also we did. And what it was observed is whatever concept, the method or technique that we tried to give here, it was successful and it is able to spend more time that methane is able to spend more time inside the reactor. So this is one CFD study. We tried to mimic the actual conditions using CFD. So now what we tried is, I did try several combinations, but I am trying to show you here only few things. So here there is a wall screening and there is a main flow, right? This wall screening, that means from the sides, wherever I am pointing, because if you are using the argon, again you have to spend some energy or like other method you have to do such that you again separate argon. Why? Because at the exit you will get methane, hydrogen, argon and carbon particles. So that's why I tried with hydrogen. So if you observe, if you can observe here, this is actually a CFD simulation. When I am using hydrogen as wall screening, this wall screening is totally disturbing the flow. But you are seeing some red lines here. This is actually methane. Methane is also not spending that much time, it is simply coming down at the bottom. But the wall where I am expecting that this acts as a cage, the screening acts as a cage and it will protect the carbon particles such that the carbon particles does not go and stick the walls. So, but hydrogen was not at all successful. So what we did is we tried to have argon, because argon is inert and relatively heavier fluid. So we tried to make use of argon as a wall screening here. You can observe here, methane is not going and hitting the walls, but the argon is forming a very good cage-like structure. You see here, it is acting as a cage, like just we enter the mall, right? So there is an air jet which will help such that the inside cooling air is not going out and the outside particles also will not be coming out. In the same manner, what we try to do is this air curtain, we try to maintain like a shield such that the carbon and methane does not go and stick the walls, and we can make sure that it does not agglomerate. So this is like temperature. So this is for hydrogen. You can observe here. Here near the walls the temperature is more, but at the center the temperature was less. You can observe here. But here when I am using argon wall screening, the temperature distribution was uniform. It was good. So what I can have is, when I have a uniform temperature distribution inside, there is a probability that or chance that the methane decomposition can be relatively high here. And one more thing is that at the center here the temperature is less and at the walls it is more. So here on the left hand side, case 1, there is a chance that this methane, just if it is escaping the shield and hitting this particular surface, this methane will convert to carbon and this carbon will stick to the walls. So that chance was there. So what I tried to do is, I tried to simulate how the carbon decomposition takes place. See, whatever red you are seeing here, right, this is nothing but a carbon. So if you observe here, the carbon is everywhere. It is everywhere on the left hand side when you are using hydrogen wall screening. But if I am going for argon wall screening, you observe here, this wall screening, that argon, whatever I am using, it is protecting my wall here. So if you observe here, this carbon that is formed here is not going and sticking the walls. It is there at the center itself. It is not near the walls. But here on the left hand side, it is going and sticking the walls. So there is a high probability that for case 1, this carbon starts agglomerating near the walls, and there is a chance that it may damage this particular reactor also. So you can see here, this is a carbon, and you can see here, like as I'm pointing out, it is forming a jet kind of thing, and this argon shield is protecting this carbon such that it does not go and stick to the walls. Now, till now we did experiments, but the problem is whatever work it was done earlier, they used a single carbon particle size. But when we have taken a sample of carbon particles, it is nothing but the distribution. You cannot have a mono-sized particle, carbon particles. So there was a particle size analyzer, which is made by Fluke. We tried to see the particle size distribution of this carbon particles which was supplied to us. So we could find it is ranging from 1 micron to that of nearly 71 microns. And you can say the average diameter is around 50 microns. So I did, based upon the inputs, I did lot of parametric investigation. So for certain cases, you can observe here F1, F2, F3. F3 is nothing but my wall screening. So F2 is nothing but a window screening, and F1 is nothing but a methane. That means main flow. So here, see here, if you observe, the mass flow rates were also varied. And you can observe here. You can observe here, this is a non-uniform size particles. That means whatever sample I have taken from particle size analyzer, that is particle size distribution. There is a Rosser-Romer model which is there. So I used that particular model, and I used this non-particle size distribution in the fluid. That means in the code. So, and the mass flow rate of the particles are also varied. If you observe here, so for most of the things, if I am using the non-uniform particle distribution, there was a exit. At the exit window, it was clear. It is almost like 0. But at the exit, there was a particle deposition that was observed. So I did a lot of like parametric study, and this yellow highlighted portion was seen to be a promising one. So like this, several simulations were done. Non-uniform in the sense means whatever particle size distribution I had, everything I did. So this is one thing that you can see here. So when I have a methane flow of 10 liters per minute and 20 liters per minute, you can observe here the cage-like structure which is protecting the wall did not get disturbed. Okay, but and again one more thing, if you are increasing the flow rate, it is one way good. Why? Because it is forming a vortex here, and the residence time also can be increased. But the walls and windows were fine, glass window were fine. But what I have observed is when the flow rate is increasing, methane flow rate is increasing, you can observe here this particular portion, there is more of carbon is getting stuck or getting clogged at the reactor exit. So which is much more dangerous, and which will lead to failure of the reactor. So I tried to understand what is the main reason for it. So one is like uniform size particles, and like for 10 liters per minute and 20 liters per minute, I tried to simulate this. So you can observe these are particle trajectories. On the left hand side, whatever you are seeing is nothing but it shows the particles. And what I have observed here is when I increase the flow rate, larger diameter particles are going and hitting this particular wall because of the inertia. It does have more inertia. So it started, especially this cage-like structure which is formed, is able to protect up to this particular region. But below that, because larger size particles are making the mess, that means it is getting stuck to the reactor exit, and it is actually choking the system. So what I did is like I tried to study further and see, okay, if I restrict, because larger size particles are having some issue, if I reduce the particle size to much more lower level, does it give a promising result? The answer was yes. If I reduce the particle size to something like 40 microns or so, the clogging at the reactor exit was relatively very, very less. It is almost like minimum. But if you are going for much more lower mass flow rates, it is almost like zero. You cannot find anything else here. You can see here a clean glass window, a clean wall, but only problem was with the exit. And one more thing, it is like two sides of a coin. If I vary this cone portion of the reactor portion to something else, what happens is the flow structure itself will change. So a lot of detailed analysis is still required here, such that this clogging can be overcome. So coming back to the conclusions, so obviously out of various renewable energy sources, solar energy is a promising one. As all the renewable energy sources does have certain issues, especially it is totally uncertain and there is a lot of temporal variations are there. It is very much necessary for us to convert into some transportation fuel. So transportation fuel, out of various transportation fuels, hydrogen can be considered as a promising one. So among the various methods that are available, solar methane cracking is a very promising option. Why? Because you do not have any CO2 emissions in the cycle. So when we are trying with different designs, we have come out with some aero-shielded reactor concept where argon is used as window and wall screening, and it acted as a shield-like structure such that it does not clog the reactor wall and exit. The shield-like flow structure assisted in protecting the reactor walls from carbon deposition. When hydrogen is used as window screening, the increasing in main flow led to the decrease in particle deposition rate at the window. Obviously, it will try to screen the glass window. And one more thing, if you use hydrogen as the wall screen, it is one way good. But why? Because the separation process can be like the burden on the separation process can be reduced. But the problem is, as when compared to hydrogen, it was observed that this cage-like structure is totally disturbed. The main flow is disturbing the hydrogen shield. But if you are going for argon instead of hydrogen, that is considered to be a promising option. By fine-tuning the reactor or like conical exit of the aero-shielded reactor, still we can have much more promising solution. But the problem is, it is in hand in the sense, if you are changing the reactor exit, if you are changing the like shape of the reactor instead of conical portion, some other portion if you are trying, what happens is it may disturb the flow and you may not have the vortex. That is another issue. Out of all the things based upon my study, what I have observed is if you have a lower mass flow rate of methane and the particle size of something like 40 microns or less than that, it is observed to be a promising one. Okay, this is what, with this I will conclude the presentation. Thank you. If there are any queries, please.
Yes, participants, please, any queries, can you ask, please? Sorry. Participants.
If anyone has anything to ask, please.
Yeah, please, participants, if you have any queries regarding this session, can you please ask or can you type the message also? Okay, sir. Thank you for your very useful presentation, sir, regarding conversion, storage of solar energy, transportation, solar methane cracking, and types of solar reactors. Very good, useful presentation, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Before I close, I would like to thank Professor Rameshwar Reddy garu and the management of JNTU Tiruvallur for giving me this opportunity. I hope you have enjoyed the presentation. I hope I did not bore you.
Sir, if you don't mind, I have one question. Hello.
Yeah, please, sir.
Please.
Please, sir.
Sir, as far as solar reactors are concerned, so what type of the finite element analysis do I do I apply? And second point is, even if I apply, then shall I use the optimization techniques?
Yes, sir. Actually, first of all, like especially when you are going for solar reactors, it is highly complex, sir. If you just observe mine problem, it has all the complexities that you have in CFD. One is turbulence modeling is there. We do have radiation in that. We do have species is that species. We do have chemical kinetics with reactions. Like there are so many issues are there here. So to the best of my knowledge, I suggest you to make use of finite volume based CFD tools. And one more thing is that writing code for this is highly time consuming. So even if it will become more than like 1 or 2 PhD works. Why? Because all the complexities are there. That is why even for my postdoc work, I used ANSYS Fluent, and with that itself, within a span of 1 year or so, I could publish some 5-6 papers out of it, and that in reputed journals. So my suggestion is that instead of directly going to all the complexities, first one, make use of some finite volume based commercial tool like ANSYS Fluent, then slowly increase the complexity. First is try to understand the flow with some basic turbulence models. Then next step, along with the flow, you please try to incorporate radiation. Then along with radiation, next step will be like species. And after that only you have to try, if you have chemical kinetics and reaction, then only you have to try them. But in your reactor, if there is no species transfer or something, that is much more relatively easier. Why? Because you don't have, as the complexity is increasing, you need to actually incorporate some UDFs, user-defined functions, and it becomes much more difficult also. So all the things should be taken care of.
Okay, sir. Okay. Sir, really, it's a wonderful presentation I observed, and it
Thank
has
you,
a good scope as far as the researchers are concerned. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you,
sir.
sir. Okay, sir. Good day. Thank you, everyone. Stay safe. Bye.
Okay, sir. Bye, sir.
Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, participants. Again, we will meet 2:15 for next session. So don't make bother about attendance. It is already online monitoring is going on, and we don't want any feedback. At the end of 5 days, we will take the feedback session. Please make to observe this one. So don't make to put any messages. If anything we want attendance, I will post it afternoon. As it is already monitoring on online, tracking system is there. Please.
Okay, thank you.
If anything required, I will send a Google Form meet afternoon. Okay. Thank you. Again. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Please. 2:15 your meet. 2:15 again the session is going to